The courtroom was unusually full that morning. It wasn't a high-profile criminal trial or a celebrity case that drew the small crowd. It was something quieter, yet far more unsettling. A custody case, buried in local legal filings, had captured quiet attention among law enforcement and court staff. Whispers of neglect, unexplained bruises, and strange silences had surrounded it for months. And at the center of it all was a little girl named Lily James, just 3 years old. Lily wasn't meant to be a witness in the traditional sense. She was too young to understand oaths, too delicate to be questioned like an adult. But the judge had allowed her presence in court that day, after weeks of deliberation. Just her presence, they hoped, might open a door. So, when the heavy oak doors creaked open, and Lily stepped in holding her court-appointed child advocate's hand, the room subtly shifted. People didn't move or speak, but they watched. She was tiny, smaller than her age, really, with her thin arms wrapped around a fraying stuffed rabbit and pink barrettes, trying to hold back strands of soft brown hair. Her shoes were a size too big, probably donated. Her eyes were the kind that had seen far too much in very little time. They scanned the room, not with curiosity, but with caution. The child advocate, a calm woman named Tara, guided Lily to a bench near the front, next to the judge's platform, but out of direct view of the defense table. A special child seat had been set up with soft cushions. Beside it sat a large, steel-gray German shepherd with a calm, watchful face. Ranger. Ranger was more than a therapy dog. He was a courtroom guardian, trained to stay silent and still during hearings and to provide comfort to children called upon in difficult cases. He'd worked dozens of times before, often melting into the background unnoticed, his presence soothing but passive. Today, though, his role would become something far more significant. As Lily settled beside him, she didn't speak. She didn't smile. She simply placed her stuffed rabbit in her lap and pressed her side against Ranger's thick fur. He didn't move, but his ears twitched ever so slightly. Her tiny hand slowly found the side of his neck and began to gently pat. A low murmur ran through the back of the courtroom, mostly reporters and concerned locals. On the front benches sat the attorneys, the Child Protection Agency, the prosecutor, and the defense team. The man sitting at the defense table, a mid-30s man with a sharp jawline and downturned mouth, avoided looking toward the child. He fidgeted with his pen and tapped it against the table. The judge, an older woman known for her fairness and sharp sense of presence, leaned slightly forward and cleared her throat. Let the record show that the minor child, Lily James, is present in the courtroom with her appointed child advocate and comfort dog. There was no expectation for Lily to speak, not today. The decision to allow her into the room was a strategic one, not about testimony, but about truth. Over the past 2 months, Lily had barely spoken at all. Child psychologists believed she was suffering from selective mutism caused by trauma. She wouldn't speak to therapists or foster parents, not even to Tara, except to whisper the name of her bunny, Pickle. But Tara had noticed something. When Lily had her therapy sessions accompanied by Ranger, she was calmer, more alert. Her breathing slowed, her muscles relaxed. Once, when another child had visited the clinic, Lily had whispered a word, hide. That word had led to further investigation, but no one could build a case on fragments. No full sentences. No disclosure. No memory that could hold weight in court. Still, the prosecuting attorney insisted that even being in the room might help. Familiar faces and familiar fear could sometimes stir something in a child, something critical. And so they watched. 5 minutes passed. Lily sat quietly, legs swinging slightly beneath her chair. Her fingers ran across the seams of her stuffed bunny's ear. Then, slowly, she looked up. She didn't speak, not yet. But her eyes moved, not quickly, not nervously, but purposefully. From the judge to the bailiff, then to her mother, sitting stiffly behind the defense table. Her mother's eyes were red, mascara clinging to lashes that hadn't been cleaned in days. Her face was blank. She looked at Lily for a split second, then away. Lily's gaze lingered there, until it moved further, to the man sitting beside. Her mother, her mother's boyfriend, the man at the center of the allegations. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Ranger shifted beside her, just an inch, as if nudging her with breath alone. The courtroom watched, tension filling every corner. No one dared speak. Lily blinked. Then she turned away, as if the energy was too much. Her hand reached out. Not for her bunny, but for Ranger's vest. Her small fingers tugged gently at the badge sewn onto the side. It read, Therapy K9 Court Support Unit. She rubbed it as if it were made of velvet. The judge finally spoke again, softly. This time, Miss James, you're safe here. You don't have to say anything. We're just glad you're here. Lily looked up at the judge, then back down at the badge. Tara, sitting just behind her, leaned forward. It's okay, sweetheart. You're doing so well. There was still no sound, but the way Lily pressed herself against Ranger, the way she held onto his badge, said more than anyone expected. And then, without fanfare, Lily did something no one saw coming. She lifted her arm and pointed. Not wildly, not uncertainly, but slowly, directly. Her fingers stretched out in a line that cut across the room. Straight to the man at the defense table. The courtroom froze. Every eye followed the line of that tiny finger. The man at the table stiffened. The judge raised her brow. Then Lily whispered, so softly that Tara wasn't sure she heard it right at first. 2 words. Gasps echoed softly through the room. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was real. The sound of disbelief, of something sacred being cracked open. Little Lily James had pointed. She had spoken. 2 words. Bad man. Everyone froze. The judge paused mid-motion, her hand hovering near her gavel. A stenographer looked up from her keyboard, stunned. The bailiff shifted on his feet, unsure whether to respond or wait. Tara, Lily's advocate, leaned forward, her heart thundering in her ears. Lily, she whispered gently, unsure if what she heard was real. What did you say, sweetheart? Lily didn't flinch. Still holding her stuffed bunny in one hand, her other remained extended. She pointed again, this time with more firmness, her little arm not shaking anymore. Bad man, she said again, her voice a fraction louder, clear, quiet, devastating. Across the courtroom, the accused man's face twitched. He quickly dropped his pen and looked down at the table. His attorney whispered something urgently in his ear, but he didn't respond. He didn't need to. The shift in his posture told the room everything, and beside Lily, Ranger rose, not abruptly, not aggressively. He stood with calm purpose, as if sensing a change in energy, as if understanding his moment had arrived. He took one slow step forward, positioning his large body in front of Lily, between her and the man she had pointed to. His stance wasn't threatening, but it was protective, solid, unshakable. Tara instinctively reached for Lily's shoulders and gently pulled her into her arms. She didn't cry, not yet, but the emotion pressed behind her eyes. She'd been working this case for nearly 2 months, visiting Lily multiple times a week, sometimes daily. And for all those visits, the child had barely spoken 5 words in total. And now here, in front of strangers, a judge, her accused abuser, she had spoken. Not nonsense, not baby talk, but a direct accusation. A simple phrase that changed everything. The judge exhaled slowly, and leaned back in her seat. Let the record reflect that the minor child has spoken under no direct prompting and has identified the defendant verbally. The defense attorney shot to his feet. Your Honor, I'd like to... The judge raised her hand, silencing him with a single gesture. You'll get your turn, counselor. But you will not interrupt this moment. She looked over at Ranger and nodded to the officer holding his leash. The officer stepped forward and placed a hand lightly on Ranger's collar, just as a formality. But Ranger didn't move. He simply stood, steady as a statue, his gaze fixed on Lily, and occasionally flicking toward the man she'd accused. It was in that moment that the courtroom remembered. Ranger had been there from the beginning. Weeks earlier, when Child Protective Services had responded to a 911 call at Lily's home, Ranger had been part of the first responder team. As part of a program designed to reduce trauma for children rescued from dangerous environments, he had entered the house with his handler, a deputy trained in handling abuse cases. It was Ranger who had found Lily curled up behind a pile of laundry in a dark corner of her bedroom. It was Ranger who had laid beside her silently until she was calm enough to be picked up. According to the case file, the girl hadn't made a sound, hadn't screamed or cried. She had simply followed Ranger's movement with her eyes, and when he lay down next to her, curled up beside him like he was a familiar friend. That's why the judge had agreed to allow Ranger in the courtroom. Not just for emotional support, but because he was a symbol. A bridge between Lily's trauma and her safety. Tara spoke again, softly, kneeling beside Lily. Can you tell me more, Lily? Who's the bad man? Lily hesitated. Her eyes flicked to the defense table. Again, she didn't need to speak further. Her body language was enough. Her grip on her bunny tightened, and she leaned her small body further into Ranger's side, as if bracing for something. But then she surprised them all once more. He heard Pickle. The room blinked. Tara looked down at the bunny in Lily's arms. It was ragged and torn near the ear, like it had been ripped and sewn back together. She hadn't thought much of it at the time. Kids always had worn-out toys. But now, that little detail burned in her mind. What happened to Pickle? Tara asked gently. Lily didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She looked Tara straight in the eyes, and her next words were sharp enough to slice the air. He threw him at the wall. The gallery behind them stirred again. People were holding their breath. And you? Tara asked softly. Lily didn't speak. She simply pulled her sleeve up and revealed a faint bruise along her upper arm. It had faded, but the imprint of pain was still visible. That was it. That was the moment. No one needed more. The judge, visibly moved, cleared her throat. Court will recess for 10 minutes. Officers, please escort the defendant into custody for questioning. This testimony warrants immediate review. The man was already pale, sweating. He stood, with resistance, muttering to his attorney, but he knew it was over. Not because of the legal argument, not yet, but because of a little girl who had finally found her voice. As the bailiff led him out, Ranger remained standing beside Lily. Only when the man was gone did he sit again, resting beside her as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Tara hugged Lily close. You were so brave, she whispered. Lily, resting against Ranger, closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she looked at peace. The courtroom was emptied, but the weight of what had happened still hung in the air. The tension had broken, yet the silence that followed felt even heavier. Behind the judge's bench, court clerks shuffled paperwork with quiet urgency. The prosecutor whispered to her assistant, reviewing Lily's brief but powerful statement. Meanwhile, Tara sat on a padded bench in the hallway, cradling Lily gently in her arms, while Ranger lay sprawled out beside them, alert but calm, like a soldier finally at rest. Lily had spoken, not just words, but truths. And although they came in fragments, they carried the undeniable sting of honesty that couldn't be ignored. The hallway was quiet, except for the occasional echo of footsteps and the mechanical hum of overhead lights. Lily sat nestled against Tara's side, the same stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. She wasn't talking now. She didn't need to. She had done enough. Her eyes blinked slowly, almost sleepy, but there was something else behind them too. Memory. Deep, difficult, dangerous memory. Judge Hartley stepped out of her chambers briefly and made her way over, heels clicking against polished tile. She wasn't a judge who usually left the bench to speak with people directly, but something about this case had pierced through her usual detachment. She knelt slightly in front of Lily, placing a hand over her heart. "Lily," she said, gently, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. What you did in that courtroom today was very brave." Lily didn't respond, but her eyes met the judge's, a glance that held more understanding than most adults ever manage. Then, without warning, she whispered one word, "Remember." Judge Hartley looked up at Tara, puzzled. Did she say remember? Tara nodded, brow furrowing. "Yes, that's the second time she said that word to me. Once last week, when we were outside the clinic. She pointed at a police car and said the same thing." Judge Hartley pressed her lips together in thought. "She's trying to tell us something. Something more. Keep her comfortable. The prosecution's going to request a full forensic interview under special conditions. I'll approve it." She stood, composed again. But the expression on her face betrayed something. Admiration. And worry. Tara turned to Lily. "What do you remember, sweetie?" Lily looked up slowly. Her lips didn't move at first, but her hand reached out again, toward Ranger. She placed her palm on his vest and ran her fingers over the patch. That said support unit. Her eyes lingered there for a long moment. Then she pointed not randomly, not at nothing, but to the small brass badge clipped just above the patch. The badge wasn't for show. It was an official insignia. Earned by Therapy K9 South, who had served in active legal investigations. Ranger had earned his on the night Lily was rescued. Lily's voice was soft, like she was talking to herself, but Tara heard it. He was there. When the light came on, Tara froze. When the light came on, Lily nodded. He came. And when it was loud, I was in the dark. He found me. Tara's mind raced back to the police report. The night Lily was found, officers had entered the home under suspicion of child neglect and abuse. Ranger had accompanied them. According to the deputy's statement, Lily had been hiding in the laundry room, crouched behind a pile of clothes, in near total darkness. She hadn't made a sound until Ranger entered and lay down beside her. That moment, that rescue, was seared into Lily's memory. But more than that, it seemed to be the key to unlocking the rest. Tara gently placed a hand on Lily's knee. "Was it loud that night, Lily?" Lily blinked. A long pause. "Yes." "Were people yelling?" She shook her head. "Not people, him. Just him." Tara took a slow breath, knowing she needed to ask carefully. "Did he hurt you?" Lily nodded slowly. Then, almost inaudibly, he said, "Don't tell." Tara felt her chest tighten. The courtroom testimony had cracked the case. But this was more than that. This was a timeline forming. Not just scattered memories, but a story. One that Lily had locked away, deep behind walls that only Ranger seemed able to get through. At that moment, Ranger sat up. Not urgently, but attentively. He looked toward the end of the hallway, where the prosecutor now approached. "May I?" the woman asked, crouching down next to Tara. Tara nodded. The prosecutor smiled at Lily. "Hi there, sweetheart. My name's Miss Carla. Do you remember me from inside? Lily gave a tiny nod. I wanted to say thank you. What you said in there, it helped a lot of people understand what happened to you. You're very brave. She held up a small notepad and showed Lily a drawing, a smiley face next to a badge. Do you know what this is? She asked. Lily pointed again. His, she said, touching Ranger's badge. Carla smiled. That's right. Ranger's badge. He wears it because he helps people like you. Do you want to help us remember more of what happened? There was a beat of silence. Lily didn't say yes. But she didn't say no, either. Instead, she reached for a crayon that Tara offered, and with surprising care, began to draw something on a blank sheet. It wasn't messy scribbles, not random lines. She drew a door. A closed door. And behind it, a small girl. A figure with X's for eyes. And a man with big hands towering over both. Chills ran through Carla's arms. She exchanged a glance with Tara. They didn't need a formal statement to understand. Lily was remembering everything. And now, thanks to a silent German shepherd, a stuffed bunny, and a courtroom that finally gave her space to speak, the truth was coming out. One careful word, one drawing, and one memory at a time. The courtroom was packed again. Only this time, it wasn't whispers that filled the air. It was tension. The day after Lily James uttered 2 words that shook the foundation of the custody case. Bad man. Judge Hartley called for a continuation hearing. Something had shifted. No longer was this a simple custody dispute. Lily's spontaneous statement, combined with her drawings and quiet affirmations, had given the case a chilling new direction. Potential criminal abuse. The man she pointed to, her mother's boyfriend, Darren Cole, sat silently at the defense table, no longer confident, no longer composed. He looked like a man unraveling thread by thread. As he adjusted his tie, his attorney scribbled frantic notes. Outside the courthouse, media trucks had started lining up small-town reporters, now gripping a story with national potential. A child, a therapy dog, and a courtroom confession. The pieces practically wrote themselves. Inside, Tara held Lily's hand as they approached the witness stand, not to testify, but to observe. The judge had allowed her presence again under strict conditions. She wouldn't be asked questions. She would simply sit, accompanied by Ranger. Ranger, as always, walked beside her like a shadow. Calm, steady, purposeful, he laid at her feet. His eyes trained on everything, but his body still as stone. Lily reached down and gently rested her hand on his back. It was her anchor. Judge Hartley entered, and the courtroom rose. She looked sterner today, less maternal, more judicial. She had reviewed the police reports, the child psychologist's notes, the drawing Lily made in the hallway. And she had one goal: uncover the full truth. We are gathered today, the judge began, to examine new evidence presented since yesterday's hearing. This includes an unsworn outcry from the minor child, as well as supportive behavioral evidence. The court has reason to believe the nature of this case now extends beyond family law into potential criminal conduct. Lily didn't understand those words, but she felt the weight behind them. As Tara wrapped a comforting arm around her shoulders, Lily watched the man at the table, Darren. Her tiny frame stiffened when he looked up briefly and made the mistake of locking eyes with her. She didn't look away. Neither did Ranger. The prosecutor, Carla, approached the bench. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to play a short video from the night of Lily's rescue. The judge nodded. Proceed. The lights dimmed slightly as a screen came to life. It was body cam footage, grainy and dark, from an officer's vest-mounted camera. The audio was faint, but captured everything. Police department. Open the door. A woman could be heard sobbing. There was a crash. Officers entered. Then came the moment. A flashlight scanned across a cluttered hallway. A child's toy. A broken picture frame. And then movement. In the corner of a small laundry room, behind a pile of dirty clothes, 2 tiny feet. "She's here," a deputy whispered. The camera tilted down. There was Lily, her face pale, silent, curled up in the corner like she was part of the wall. And then Ranger entered the frame. He approached slowly, deliberately. He lay beside her, his body forming a shield. The camera caught her hand shaky, unsure, reaching for the badge on his vest. She clutched it like it was the only real thing in her world. Tara looked down at Lily, who was now pressing herself into Ranger's side. She was remembering it. All. When the lights came back on, the courtroom was different. Hushed. The kind of silence that only came when people felt something too heavy to put into words. Carla stepped forward. That was the night she was found. That footage was never shown in court because it was considered inadmissible for a custody hearing. But in light of her statement yesterday, and the visible trauma she displayed when identifying Mr. Cole, we believe this is now vital evidence. Judge Hartley looked to the defense attorney. "Do you wish to respond?" He stood slowly, straightening his papers. "Your Honor, we contend that any emotional response from the minor is unreliable. She's 3 years old. The footage is moving, yes, but it proves nothing about my client's actions." At that moment, Lily's voice, quiet but unmistakable, cut through the room. He was yelling. Every head turned. She hadn't been asked anything, but something inside her had stirred. Judge Hartley looked down from the bench. "Miss James, are you all right?" Lily pointed again, this time not shaking, not unsure. "He was yelling," she repeated. Pickle was scared. Then he hit. The room didn't move. Carla stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Lily, can you tell us what happened to your bunny?" Lily looked down at the frayed rabbit in her lap. She touched the torn ear. He grabbed Pickle and threw him. Then I was loud. Then he hit. Ranger's ears perked. He stayed still but alert. The defense attorney began to object, but the judge raised her hand. "Let her speak," she said. Carla moved closer. "Did anyone else see?" Lily nodded. "Mama saw. She cried." Another silence. But this time, there was no tension. There was clarity. Judge Hartley leaned forward. "I've heard enough. This court will issue a temporary restraining order against Mr. Cole. Emergency. Custody will be granted to Child Protective Services until a formal placement can be reviewed." She turned to the bailiff. "Have officers escort the defendant out. He is not to come within 500 feet of the child. Criminal charges will follow pending further investigation." Darren stood quickly, face burning. "This is ridiculous. You're listening to a baby with a toy dog." But his words fell flat. The courtroom didn't respond. Ranger stood, not barking, not aggressive, just standing. And it was enough. The bailiff approached Darren, placing a firm hand on his arm. "Let's go, sir." As he was led out, Lily exhaled slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply reached again for Ranger's badge. Tara held her close. "You did." "It, Lily." She didn't answer. She looked at the badge and whispered, "He helped me." Carla knelt beside her. "You helped yourself, sweetheart. Ranger just stayed beside you." Outside the courtroom, news cameras rolled, but inside, something much quieter was happening. Justice had begun, not because of shouting lawyers or dramatic speeches, but because of 2 quiet words, and the girl brave enough to say them. The courthouse lobby was quiet now. Not empty, just quiet in the way places become after something powerful has happened, like a storm that leaves the air strangely still. Lawyers moved in hushed tones. Clerks avoided eye contact, the kind of Silence reserved for hospitals, funeral homes. Or, in this case, the place where a 3-year-old girl just shattered the strongest defense with a sentence barely 3 words long. Tara sat on a padded bench near the elevators, with Lily curled up beside her. The little girl's head rested on Ranger's back, as if the canine were her personal pillow. His breathing was steady. So was hers. But Tara's thoughts raced. They had just watched the accused Darren Cole taken into custody. Not formally arrested yet, but escorted out for violating a protection order. His outburst in court only reinforced what many already suspected: guilt cloaked in arrogance. Tara studied Lily's face. The child was tired, emotionally drained, but her eyes didn't look frightened anymore. Not in the way they used to. There was still trauma. Yes, still shadows. But now, there was something new underneath. Something healing. It wasn't the kind of healing you get from time. It was the kind born when the truth is finally spoken, when fear is named and shame is shared. Ranger shifted, ears twitching. His leash, held loosely by an officer across the lobby, twitched with him. It was as if he knew what Tara was thinking. "You really are something, aren't you?" Tara whispered, her hand moving to stroke the young fur between Ranger's shoulders. Lily lifted her head slightly. "He knew," she said. Tara looked down. "Ranger?" Lily nodded. "He knew I was scared." Tara gave her a soft smile. "Yes, he always knows." Ranger had been trained to detect trauma responses in children. Changes in breathing, posture, even micro-movements. But what couldn't be trained was the calm he gave. That wasn't from a manual. That came from the bond he built, quietly and patiently. The elevator dinged. Out stepped Judge Hartley. She wasn't wearing her robe anymore, just a tailored suit and flats, but she still carried that same presence. The moment she saw Lily, she softened. "Hello again, little one," she said, crouching gently. "I wanted to come down myself and say something." Lily blinked up at her, then sat up slowly, hugging Pickle the stuffed rabbit closer to her chest. "You know, sometimes in a courtroom, it takes a lot of talking to find the truth," Judge Hartley said. "But not always. Today, your voice, those 2 little words, spoke louder than any of ours." Lily didn't say anything, but she reached out and gently touched the judge's hand. Just a soft tap. And then she went back to leaning against Ranger. Tara stood, offering a small nod. "Thank you, Your Honor." "I should be thanking her," the judge replied. "We're opening a full criminal investigation, and we're requesting an emergency forensic interview with Lily, but only if she's ready." Tara nodded. "We'll take it one moment at a time." The judge gave one last look at the trio, Lily, Ranger, and Tara, and left as quietly as she had come. Not long after, the prosecutor Carla joined them, holding a small folder. She had just stepped out of a meeting with police investigators and forensic specialists. "Hey there, Lily," she said, kneeling down again. "Can I tell you something?" Lily didn't speak, but she didn't turn away either. Carla smiled and opened the folder. Inside was a photograph. A laminated copy of Ranger's badge, clean and glossy. "This is for you," she said, offering the picture. "It's Ranger's badge, a real one, just like the one he wears." Lily reached for it, running her finger over the smooth surface. "Mine?" she asked softly. "All yours," Carla said. Lily smiled just barely, but it was there. A real one. The first anyone had seen. "I also wanted to tell you something else," Carla continued. "You remember your drawing? The one with the door and the little girl?" Lily nodded. "Well, we showed that drawing to some very smart people who help kids talk when the words are hard. And guess what? They understood it. They understood you." Lily's eyes lit up a little. "They know?" "They know," Carla affirmed. And they believe you. Tara felt her throat tighten. For weeks, she'd been Lily's voice. But now, the child was beginning to speak for herself. It was a delicate moment. One that didn't need loud applause or headlines, just quiet recognition that truth had broken through. And still, not everything had been said. Later that afternoon, back at the Child Advocacy Center, Lily participated in a carefully supervised forensic interview. The room was filled with toys and soft lighting, designed to feel more like a playroom than an interrogation space. Ranger waited just outside, allowed inside only if Lily requested him. The forensic interviewer, trained in child trauma, didn't ask questions at first. She just played. Blocks, crayons, puppets, letting Lily take the lead. After a while, Lily began to talk. She talked about Pickle, about the yelling, about hiding under the clothes when the bad man was angry, about the times he scared her mommy too. She talked in fragments, like puzzle pieces tossed into a box. But as the interviewer listened, patterns emerged. Timelines formed. And then, quietly, Lily said the most important part. He said not to tell. The interviewer paused, keeping her expression calm. Who said that, Lily? The bad man, she whispered. He said if I told, he'd throw Pickle again, and me. Outside the room, Tara wiped a tear from her cheek. She knew then. Lily was no longer just a survivor. She was a witness, a brave one. That night, as the sun set over the courthouse and the street lamps flickered on, Tara and Lily sat on a quiet bench beneath a tree outside the center. Ranger lay at their feet, head resting on Lily's lap. Lily looked up at the sky. Can Ranger stay with me? Tara smiled. He can visit every time you need him. Lily nodded. He makes the bad feel small. Tara pulled her close. You do that too, you know. Lily tilted her head. Me? Yes, Tara said. You made the bad feel very small today, because you are big, bigger than it. Lily smiled again, bigger this time. Stronger. Ranger lifted his head, tail wagging once. The morning light poured through the windows of the Child Advocacy Center, casting long shadows over the floor tiles. It was quiet except for the occasional sound of coffee brewing in the staff kitchen, and the low thump of Ranger's tail tapping gently against the floor. Lily sat cross-legged on a padded mat in one of the therapy rooms, clutching her new laminated copy of Ranger's badge in one hand and her ever-present bunny, Pickle, in the other. She was humming a soft tune. Not a song anyone recognized, just something she made up as she moved her hand across Ranger's fur, tracing invisible patterns. Tara watched from the corner of the room, seated beside one of the child therapists, her expression a mix of relief and awe. In just a few days, Lily had transformed. She wasn't fully healed. Trauma didn't work that way, but she was. Lighter. The haunted look in her eyes had faded slightly. She smiled more often. She talked more. And most importantly, she wasn't afraid to remember anymore. The laminated badge had become a kind of shield, a symbol that the scariest thing had been faced, and somehow she had survived it. She keeps holding on to that badge, the therapist whispered, noting it in her file. Children her age often latch on to symbols of safety, especially ones connected to moments of rescue. Tara nodded slowly. That night, when Ranger found her, she grabbed his badge before she spoke, before she moved. It's like the badge became the promise that she was finally safe. The therapist glanced over at Lily. And now it's her memory anchor. Something she controls, instead of something that controls her. As if on cue, Lily looked up from the floor and lifted the badge toward Tara. This means I'm brave. Right? Tara's heart melted. She nodded, walking over and kneeling beside her. It means you're very brave, she said. It means you remembered something hard, and you told the truth. That takes more courage than most grown-ups have." Lily smiled proudly, clutching both the badge and pickle tighter. But there was something else, a seriousness in her eyes, the kind of look that meant another memory was brewing, bubbling up beneath the surface. "Do you want to tell me something, Lily?" Tara asked softly. Lily nodded. "I remember. When the lights went out?" Tara's breath caught. "The lights?" she asked. Lily looked down at Pickle. "One time, he came home angry. Mama told me to hide. She turned off the light and said, 'Don't make a sound.' So I hugged Pickle and went under the clothes. Then he slammed the door." The therapist gently approached. "Did you hear anything after that?" Lily nodded, yelling. "Mama crying. Something broke. Then quiet. Then the door opened." Tara's hands clenched. She remembered the timeline. That had to be the night the anonymous 911 call came in from a neighbor, reporting sounds of fighting and glass breaking. Lily continued. "Then Ranger came. He smelled like outside. And he laid down next to me and didn't say anything." The therapist gently knelt beside her. "Did you feel safe when he came in?" Lily nodded, and her voice lowered to a whisper. "I didn't feel alone anymore." Outside the therapy room, a detective sat in the hallway with Carla, the prosecutor. They had been given permission to listen through a privacy glass window and a low-volume speaker. Neither said anything for a long time. "She's remembering in sequence now," Carla said, arms folded. "That's huge. Kids don't lie about trauma, especially not at her age." The detective, an older man with over 2 decades of experience in child cases, nodded gravely. "We've seen enough to pursue formal charges. I've already submitted the paperwork for a warrant. Darren Cole won't be walking away from this." "What about the mother?" Carla asked carefully. The detective sighed. "She's tougher. Legally, she hasn't been accused of direct abuse, but she failed to protect her daughter and admitted to it. Depending on what Lily says next, we might need to consider criminal negligence or endangerment." Back inside, Tara continued gently guiding Lily's thoughts. "Lily, do you remember anything else from that night?" she asked. Lily nodded. "Mama said, 'Don't scream. Just be quiet. He'll go away,' but he didn't. He got louder." Tara placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay, honey. You don't have to say anything else today." But Lily wasn't done. Her voice, still quiet, suddenly became calm matter-of-fact. Then he threw Pickle, and then he hit Mama. Tara felt her throat tighten again. "Did you see it?" "I peeked," Lily said. "The clothes moved, and I saw her fall." The therapist scribbled a note. Another confirmed detail, another thread that tied Lily's memory to the physical evidence from that night. "I wanted to go help her," Lily said softly, "but the floor was loud, and I was scared he'd find me." Then the lights came on. Then Ranger came. A long pause followed. Even Ranger, resting calmly beside her, opened his eyes and gently nuzzled her arm. Lily turned and hugged him. "I love him," she said. Tara smiled. "I know you do." Later that day, Tara met with the judge and prosecutor in a closed meeting room to discuss Lily's next steps. A plan was forming. Lily would remain in the care of a temporary foster family, one trained in trauma care, with access to Ranger for regular sessions. Counseling would continue, and the state would press charges against Darren Cole for child abuse, domestic violence, and obstruction of justice. As for Lily's mother, a family court hearing would determine whether reunification was even possible. Her case was more complicated, filled with fear, poor choices, and what some would call a pattern of enabling. But the court's priority was now clear. Lily's safety came first. Back at the center, Lily was drawing again. Crayons this time. A house, a sun, a big dog with a badge, and a girl holding his paw. When Tara returned, Lily held it up proudly. That's me and Ranger. He lives with me now. Tara smiled. He lives in your heart, Lily, and he'll always come when you need him. Lily thought about that, then nodded. Because I have the badge. The courthouse looked different now. Same beige walls, same echoing corridors, same tired benches and flickering lights, but something had changed. The weight it once carried, the dense fog of uncertainty, had lifted just slightly. Truth had seeped into its walls, carried on the small, brave voice of a child and the calm silence of a dog with a badge. Lily wasn't due in court again just yet, but the effects of her quiet testimony were rippling through every floor of the building. And today, a hearing was scheduled that could alter the course of her life forever. Tara stood at the entrance of the courtroom, holding a folder in her hands and trying to slow her racing heart. She had testified before countless times. She had advocated for children who had seen far worse. But none of them were Lily. None of them had looked at a K-9 with tear-streaked cheeks and said two words that had shattered silence. Bad man? Behind her, Carla, the prosecutor, adjusted her blazer, eyes locked in on a laptop screen. To her right, Detective Anders leaned against the wall, flipping through a case file marked CPS 2049 James L. Darren Cole's lawyer entered. First, expression stern but nervous. They'd seen the evidence stacking up the preliminary interviews, the forensic findings, the matching timelines from Lily's memories. Most damning was the injury report from Lily's mother, which corroborated the night Lily described hiding in the closet. Still, Darren was pleading not guilty. And that made this hearing, the pre-trial child protection review, essential. If the court ruled that Lily's safety was in jeopardy under her mother's care, she would be placed under permanent guardianship until a full custody trial took place. The doors creaked open. Lily entered, holding hands with her temporary foster guardian, a warm, older woman named Grace, who had fostered over a dozen children in her life. Ranger walked beside them, his pace slow, his steps measured. He wore his vest today not for work, but for comfort. Lily insisted. Though she wouldn't be testifying, her presence had been approved by the judge. It was important that she be seen, not as a report, not as a file, but as a child. A living, breathing little girl. Judge Hartley entered shortly after. The room stood, then sat again in practiced rhythm. The judge wasted no time. This hearing is to determine whether temporary protective custody of minor Lily James will be extended or modified based on new testimony, psychological evaluations, and law enforcement updates, she began. We will hear brief statements from the guardian ad litem, prosecution, and child protective services. Tara approached the bench first. She didn't use her notes. She didn't need them. Your Honor, I've been with Lily since the night she was removed from her home, she began. When I first met her, she couldn't speak. She flinched at every noise. She hid behind her stuffed rabbit and wouldn't meet my eyes. Today, she walked into this room holding her head up, and her badge close. Not a badge we gave her, but one she earned in the courtroom, through a moment of truth that most adults wouldn't have the strength to offer. She turned slightly toward Darren's lawyer. We can argue legal nuances all day, but what matters is this. Lily is safer now than she's ever been. She needs stability. She needs peace. And right now, she cannot have that in a household where threats were present and protection was absent. She stepped back. Carla followed. The state supports full custody transfer to the Department of Children and Family Services, pending future evaluation for adoption or long-term guardianship, Carla said. We also confirm that a criminal case has been formally opened against Darren Cole, with child endangerment and domestic assault among the charges. Darren's lawyer stood next. The mother in this case was manipulated and terrified. She's since separated from Mr. Cole and entered counseling. She is attempting to reunify with her daughter and should be given that opportunity. Tara clenched her jaw, but said nothing. Judge Hartley tapped her pen gently against her notes. Has the mother requested visitation? She has, Your Honor, Darren's lawyer replied. Supervised. The judge nodded. And the child? Tara took a breath. When asked if she wanted to see her mother, Lily responded, and, I quote, only if Ranger comes too. A few in the gallery chuckled softly. Even the judge cracked a smile. Smart girl, Hartley murmured. A brief recess was called. During the break, Lily sat quietly in the hallway, drawing in a notebook with colored pencils Grace had brought. Ranger lay beside her. Tara knelt. Next to her. What are you drawing this time? Tara asked gently. Lily smiled. It's me and Ranger at a house. With a swing. Tara tilted her head. Whose house? Lily paused. My forever house. You know, when all the scary things are done. Tara felt her heart ache and swell all at once. The girl had hope. A vision. She wasn't just surviving. Anymore, she was dreaming. The courtroom reconvened. Judge Hartley returned to the bench, her expression unreadable. This court has reviewed the CPS findings, the forensic evidence, and the behavioral assessments of the minor child. It is the judgment of this court that Lily James shall remain under protective custody, with no unsupervised visitation for the biological mother until further evaluation. Furthermore, this court recognizes the unique and crucial role that therapy, Canine Ranger, has played in this case and recommends his continued involvement in Lily's recovery. The gavel struck wood, and with that, the courtroom exhaled. Tara turned to look at Lily, who had heard none of the technical language, but somehow understood everything. She beamed at Tara and whispered, Can we go to the swing now? Tara nodded. Soon, sweetheart, soon. As they left the building, Carla caught up with them. You know what's funny? She said to Tara. That badge Lily carries? I looked it up. Ranger's original badge number was 0722. Tara raised an eyebrow. So? Lily's birthday is July 22nd. Tara stared at her. Coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. Sometimes, fate had a way of showing up in badge numbers and stuffed animals, in quiet drawings and brave whispers. But one thing was clear. Lily was no longer just a victim. She was a survivor, a truth-teller, and a symbol of the strength found in even the smallest voice. And she wasn't done yet. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting golden light across the small backyard where a wooden swing gently rocked in the breeze. Its ropes creaked softly, and from the porch came the low, familiar thump-thump of a tail against the deck. Ranger lay sprawled beside the steps, head up, eyes on the little girl running barefoot through the grass. Lily had just turned 4. A year had passed since that courtroom moment that changed everything, since her 2 words, bad man, had pierced the silence and reshaped her entire future. But now her world was quieter, not silent, just peaceful. She lived with Grace permanently now, not in a foster capacity, but legally, lovingly adopted. After a lengthy process filled with evaluations, background checks, and interviews, Tara had personally advocated for Grace to become Lily's forever guardian. And today, they were celebrating something more than just a birthday. They were celebrating freedom. The court case against Darren Cole had ended in a conviction 6 months earlier, with the help of Lily's testimony recorded gently, respectfully, and only once, and the overwhelming evidence gathered from CPS, law enforcement, and the hospital, the jury returned a guilty verdict. He would not be seeing the outside of a prison wall for years to come. Lily's mother, meanwhile, had entered a long-term recovery program. She was not an evil woman, just a broken one. And while the court had allowed limited supervised visits, once a month, Lily herself had gradually stopped asking about them. Her mother had become a soft memory, a figure in the background of her earliest years, but no longer the center of her emotional universe. That role had been filled by Grace, by Ranger, and by herself. Tara pulled up in her car just as Lily began to slow down her run, breathless and giggling, her hair wild and her dress stained with grass. Ranger perked up immediately, stood, and padded over to the gate. Lily turned. "Miss Tara!" She bolted toward the gate, Ranger at her side. Tara knelt just in time for Lily to crash into her arms. "I missed you," Lily beamed. "I missed you too, birthday girl." Tara laughed, holding her tight. "You're getting so tall." Lily pulled back and grinned. "I'm 4 now. That means I can read almost everything." "Almost?" Tara teased. "Just the easy words," Lily admitted, scrunching her nose. They walked inside the house, where balloons were taped to windows, and a cake sat in the kitchen, half covered in frosting fingerprints. A stack of cards from friends, caseworkers, and even court staff sat on the table. The judge had sent one. 2 simple typed words in elegant script. "To a very brave girl. Keep shining." Tara handed over a small gift bag. Lily opened it slowly, revealing a tiny plush version of Ranger Complete, with a little badge stitched to its side. Her eyes lit up. "It's like him," Tara smiled. "So he can sleep on your bed, and the real Ranger can have the couch." To himself, Lily giggled. "He already takes the whole couch." From the living room, the actual Ranger groaned in protest, as if to say, "That's fair." After the cake and the unwrapping and the running through the yard again, Lily settled down on the swing. Tara sat beside her on a garden bench, sipping lemonade. Grace stayed in the kitchen, finishing up dishes. For a moment, the world slowed. Lily looked up at the sky, then at Tara. "Do you remember when the lights went off?" she asked quietly. Tara turned to her, heart stirring. "Yes, I do. I was really scared then," Lily said. "But I'm not anymore." Tara nodded. "That's because you're brave. You said the truth even when it was hard." Lily thought about that. "Sometimes I think about the closet and the yelling." Tara didn't speak right away. She let the air hang gently between them. "It's okay to remember," she said finally. "And it's okay to feel things when you do. Even if it's scary." Lily nodded. "But then I remember the badge. And Ranger. And Pickle." Tara smiled. "Your safe things." Lily tilted her head. "Do you have safe things?" Tara blinked, caught off guard by the question. She looked down at her hands, then back at Lily. "I guess I do," she said slowly. "You're one of them." Lily beamed. "Me? You remind me why I do this job. Why it's worth it. Even on the hard days." Lily swung a little. "Higher. Can I help kids when I'm big?" Tara's heart swelled. "I think you already have." The sun dipped lower, painting the backyard in amber hues. Ranger dozed peacefully on the porch. Grace joined them with cups of juice and a warm smile. And Lily, that tiny survivor who had once trembled in the shadows, now soared back and forth on the swing, her laughter echoing into the sky. No courtroom could define her. No file could hold her story. And no fear would ever silence her again. Because she was brave. She was believed. And she was finally home.